Hey there, welcome into the College Basketball Bracket Science YouTube channel and podcast network. We're doing a quick show today. We're just going to do quick reaction to the Champions Classic, Michigan State versus Kentucky, Duke versus Kansas, and then Arizona playing UConn and Alabama playing Illinois last night. We weren't planning on doing a show, but there's just too much to talk about. I have too many takeaways to get into. I have some strong feelings towards Kentucky, whether you think it's going to be good, whether you think it's going to be bad, stick around for that. Kansas, I have thoughts on them. I also have thoughts about the teams that picked up some huge victories. So we're going to dive into all of that. It's not going to be a long show. I'm going to provide some stats, where I'm worried about some teams, where I'm not worried about some teams. And we are going to talk about just like maybe two other results because Marquette, my goodness, they are horrible, it seems, right now. So before we dive into it, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button for more content on this. We're recording at least twice a week, every single week. And follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Bracket Science with 2 S's. Alrighty, let's dive right into it. Let's go back to Tuesday and talk Champions Classic. Here's the full scoreboard for those watching on YouTube. Let's start with the opening game, which was number 17 Michigan State playing number 12 Kentucky, where Michigan State just absolutely dominated this entire matchup. Kansas was playing without Darren Peterson in the second matchup, so this kind of became the highlighted matchup because everyone kind of expected Duke to win that second game by maybe a little bit. And actually, the second game was better than this game. This was pretty much a blowout from start to finish. Kentucky got off to a good start. Let's talk about Michigan State first, give them credit, because it is possible that, Michigan State has sent Arkansas fans into a frenzy. Same with Kentucky fans. It's possible Michigan State is just like the grittiest team we've, just as we should expect with Tom Izzo. Jackson Kohler has been great. He had 20 points, was 8 of 12 from the field. And then Kurt Tang had his best game in a Michigan State uniform, coming off the bench, scoring 15 points, 3 of 7 from 3. Michigan State was blazing hot from 3 to start the game. I believe coming into the game, they were 13% from 3 on the season. They shot 11 of 22. They were 50% from 3, 80% from the free throw line, and 50% from the field. That's going to be tough to beat for anyone, and especially a Kentucky team that just is out of sorts. But let's give Michigan State their credit because they took down John Calipari's current team and his former team, and 2 programs that are, Kentucky and Arkansas, 2 of the most talented teams in the entire country. In Michigan State kind of, it wasn't a breeze through against Arkansas, but, I never really doubted towards the end of that game that Michigan State was going to lose it. But this game, definitely not. It was just controlled from start to finish. Michigan State looks great. The duo, let's give Jeremy Fears some credit too. I should have threw him on the graphic. 13 assists, absolutely awesome. Played tremendous defense as well. Only scored 8 points, only shot 3 times, but 13 assists. How about that? Great stuff for Jeremy Fears there. And then the front court of Cohen Carr, or I guess you can consider Cohen Carr front court, more of a wing player, but Cohen Carr, Jackson Kohler, and Carson Cooper is just awesome. It's so physical. It frustrated Kentucky to the T. All right, let's talk about Kentucky. Enough given great stuff for Michigan State. If you're a Michigan State fan, just value Tom Izzo. He is just absolutely awesome. So let's talk about Kentucky, though. Starting off just with shooting percentages, 20 of 57 from the field. That's 35%. 7 of 30 from 3. That's 23%. They were also out-rebounded in this game, 42-28, as you would kind of expect against a Tom Izzo team. So I'm not completely worried about that number, although it's not great. Now, Kentucky was without Jalen Lowe. However, this was a blowout. I don't think Jalen Lowe was going to make that much of a difference. So I have thoughts about this Kentucky team. They got up to number 1 at KenPom before the Louisville game. So it's not like it's a complete disaster. Kentucky fans are over, they're already like, I've been seeing people calling for Mark Pope's head, like, give him some time. You lost to Tom Izzo and you lost to a Louisville team that might be the best offense in the country. However, I think the money is the issue here. Mark Pope is a good basketball coach. He did a great job at BYU. He came over last year, brought a lot of his guys from BYU, Jackson Robinson, Dallin Hall. He brought a bunch of his guys, and they were, a 3 seed, made the Sweet 16. He's a good basketball coach. His identity is shooting threes. It is running and gunning and just shooting threes. Now he gets thrown $24 million at him, and he just goes and kind of collects a bunch of talent, just like kind of, the players in the MLB. If you're getting paid $1 million, are you going to bench them in college basketball? I'm not sure how much, Cam Williams is getting, the transfer from Tulane, or, the freshman Malachi Moreno and Jasper Johnson. How much money are these guys getting? The boosters aren't going to be happy with Mark Pope if you're giving Malachi Moreno $500,000 whoever that booster is sees him sitting on the bench. It's not a good thing. So it's forced to get this big rotation coming in play, along with a team that, quite frankly, just can't shoot. This team just cannot shoot in general. It kind of is going away from Mark Pope's identity. It is a great collection of talent. However, what made Mark Pope such a good coach is running and gunning, having that identity and being able to beat anyone at any time with 3-point shooting. Now it's, it's a little bit of two things. So you can be frustrated with Mark Pope, like, well, he's going to have money to give out all the time. So how are we going to have kind of a gritty team that's well coached, plays together, togetherness? I understand that. However, it's going to be, it's going to be a little bit of a process for Mark Pope to get used to. Last year, he brought his guys with him. Once again, this year, he does not really have his guys. He returned a couple pieces. Otega Oweh, most notably, he hasn't been good to start the year. He had 12 points, and this one was 4 of 12 from the field. Denzel Aberdeen shoots a little too much, in my opinion. He only shot 8 times in this game, but shot 5 threes, was 1 of 5. I don't think he's a tremendous shooter. Colin Chandler looked good to start the game. They are missing Jaden Quainton still, and obviously Jalen Lowe's out. However, who are they going to bench? I think the first person you got to get off of the bench is, or that you have to, lesser their minutes a little bit, is Malachi Moreno. I actually, during this game, had to go back and look because I haven't followed much of Kentucky basketball other than the Louisville game because they didn't, quite frankly, play anyone too spectacular. So the only game I saw Malachi Moreno play was Louisville. In this game against this Michigan State front court, he looked completely lost. He was no match whatsoever. He was just, he wasn't awful. He had 9 points, believe it or not, and he was 7 of 8 from the free throw line. So, the stats look okay. However, the impact on the court just did not look like that. He looked completely confused out there. That was kind of my big takeaway, was this front court is just absolutely, they're not great. With Brandon Garrison, Malachi Moreno as your main big man. Not great. They need Jaden Quainton's back for any sort of rim protection and any sort of just, grit down low. But the main concern for me is the shooting. 7 of 30. Mark Pope teams never shoot 7 of 30 from 3. We'll see. We'll see what's going to happen with this Kentucky team. I'm not completely out on them because once they get Jalen Lowe and Jaden Quainton's back, they're going to have to cut back the lineup and they're just going to have to find some shooting somewhere. Otega Oweh is going to come into form. This is still a top 5 team in the SEC, in my opinion. The bottom has not completely fallen off, but there is a little bit to be worried about. This is a very expensive roster that isn't cohesive at all because it's going against Mark Pope's identity. So Kentucky, a little bit worried about them. All right, let's dive into the next game. Enough about Kentucky and Michigan State. Next game, number 24 Kansas loses to number 5 Duke, 66-78. Let's talk about Duke first, given credit, as we always, we're so negative here. We always spend more time on the losing team and the takeaway. But I am going to talk a little bit about Duke here because, this team could be awesome yet again under Jon Scheyer. Cam Boozer is awesome. 18 points, 11 rebounds, 5 assists in this one. Isaiah Evans also was solid. 16 points, 3 of 7 from 3. Excuse me. I think Duke is a legit national championship contender. I don't think that's a shocking take. They're obviously awesome. In fact, I think Jon Scheyer is underrated as a coach every year. Every year he does a good job. He's done a great job every year. I know last year the end of game stuff was a little bit iffy, but it's the spacing that this offense has. It's the just the overall grit. They rebound like crazy. Jon Scheyer has a great basketball mind. At least that's what it looks like on the court. Now he also has a great collection of basketball players, but he has a great mind as well. And this roster seems to be put together pretty well. Patrick Gongba's been good as well. He had 13 points in this one to go along with these guys. Caden Boozer came off the bench, scored 7 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. I think for this team to be at the top of their game, now you can take it both ways. I think Caden Boozer is going to end up having to play more minutes than Caleb Foster. Caleb Foster seems like a really good guy and a great teammate. However, I just don't think he's that talented, quite frankly. I mean, he's obviously a good basketball player, but I think Caden Boozer is better from what I've seen. The past couple of years, Caleb Foster kind of played his way off of the court, at least last year. I think Caden Boozer is going to have to step in because he's really impressive. Speaking of which, Cam and Caden, they're freshmen. They both look like they're like 30 years old. Like, it's so weird to see them as freshmen. But I think Caden Boozer, I left this game really impressed with him, the way he kind of spaces the floor and is kind of an issue to the defense. Caleb Foster isn't much of an issue to the defense, in my opinion. And I think they're going to have another real legit playmaker because Isaiah Evans is good, However, is he the guy who can take you? I know they have Cam Boozer, but you're going to need someone else other than Cam Boozer. Is Isaiah Evans the best second best player on the team that can lead you to a national championship? I quite frankly don't think so. So I think someone else is going to have to step up and become a big three instead of just a big two. I think it will happen in the overall pieces as really well. However, I keep going back to thinking, if Duke would have got Cedric Howard, who transferred to Duke and then ended up, getting a ton of buzz in the NBA draft, went to the Grizzlies and has been awesome in the NBA. If this team had Cedric Howard, this is probably your best team in college basketball right now. Now they give or take a little bit because you might not get Dame Sarr if you have Cedric Howard, and Dame Sarr has been really good. However, just the playmaking ability of Cedric Howard and the scoring ability would have taken this team to the next level. So kind of tough because Duke did expect to have Cedric Howard. So, we might have been looking at a team that was, not many teams were as good as that Duke team was last year in terms of efficiency, but with Cedric Howard, they might have been able to get close. But Duke is awesome. I think Jon Scheyer is awesome and has really, developed himself into a top 10 coach in the entire country. Really good stuff. All right, let's talk about Kansas a little bit. Now, I was pretty negative about Kentucky. I'm actually going to be a little bit more positive about Kansas. I think Kansas has some pieces. They have some pieces. Trey White was really good in this game. He had 22 points, was 7 of 13 from the field. Flory Badunga, who we expected to be good coming into the season, was good in this one. He had 14 points, and then Melvin Council had 15 points in this one. I won't get to Marco Jackson yet because I'll stay positive for now. So they have pieces. Trey White is a good player. He is a good basketball player. Flory Badunga, also a good basketball player. Really good down low, really impressive. But I want to focus on Badunga and Council because these two guys are out of control. They need Darren Peterson in this lineup to kind of just not let Melvin Council have the ball in his hands too much. Same with Flory Badunga. Like, Flory Badunga is a great lob threat. He can make plays down low and kind of, have that interior presence. However, my goodness, he fouls like crazy, commits dumb fouls. He's, he played 32 minutes in this game, which is a lot for him, but he had 2 fouls quickly, 3 fouls quickly, 4 fouls quickly, and all were fouls where it's like, dude, what are you doing? What are we doing here? Took a couple iffy shots. I still like Flory Badunga. I know that he's kind of forced in this position where it's like, hey, Darren Peterson's not here. You're the best player on the Kansas team. Like, you have to make something happen. However, that just shows how much this team really does need Darren Peterson. I don't think that's an argument for anyone. With Melvin Council, he can be an incredible piece as well. Lightning fast, tremendous defender. Why is he shooting so many threes? He is an awful three-point shooter. He was 1 of 4 in this game, which is actually good for him. That was the first 3 he made all season long. Shoots a bunch of step backs. It doesn't look good. Forces a ton of shots. He's so fast. He can be such a great piece. He cannot have the ball in his hands whatsoever. And going along with Kansas, let's just stay a little bit more negative before we get into the positives. Marco Jackson was kind of poised to maybe be thrown into a bigger role in this game with Darren Peterson out. Also a former 5-star, Marco Jackson. I feel bad for the kid. He's got it's been ugly. This is his 3rd year at Kansas. He has not been good. He only played 6 minutes in this game. Shot 1 time, had 1 rebound, 1 foul. That was it for Marco Jackson. I would not be shocked if he's in the transfer portal right now. Can't believe he's been there for 3 years. I just genuinely feel bad for the guy. He needs a different change of scenery. But with him and Cole Rosario, I'm not high on Cole Rosario at all. I know he got a bunch of hype going into the preseason. He also makes dumb mistakes. He's a freshman. He doesn't look physically fit enough to be a Kansas. Maybe that's, just being a little bit smaller and just, I don't know. He was 2 of 7 in this game, 0 of 5 from 3, forces a lot of shots, I thought, as well. I know he can be a great 3-point shooter at points, but I think that should be coming off the bench. For this Kansas team, once Darren Peterson comes back, I think you can be a little bit optimistic because you have Darren Peterson, who might be the best top couple players in the sport, if not the best. Trey White's good, Flory Badunga down low, and Melvin Council, please tell him to stop shooting threes with that quickness. And then you have Bryson Tiller, who, has been able to knock down some shots. That's a pretty solid 5. This Kansas team to me screams 5 or 6 seed in a team that will either end their season in the round of 32 or the Sweet 16. I think it's a successful season if this team makes the Sweet 16, but I think they're going to have to cut back their lineup a little bit and be bringing, Rosario and, Jaden Dawson I actually do like as well. So, cut it to a 7 or 8 man rotation and, bring those guys off the bench, Rosario and Dawson. But felt a little better about Kansas fans. Unfortunately for Kansas bettors at plus 11.5, this game was a lot closer than this final score indicates. However, I did think Kansas played really well in this game for not having Darren Peterson. They played the game well, other than Flory Badunga and Melvin Council. Like, they were still fine in the game, obviously in the box score, but did make some, pretty big mistakes, just a little bit out of control mistakes. So the game was closer than the final score indicates, and the line ended up at plus 11.5. And Kansas did not trail by double figures at all in the game until the last, what was it, minute, 30 seconds, whatever. So kind of bad beat there for Kansas bettors, but good win for Duke. Optimistic about this Duke team. Could be a 1 seed, could be a 2 seed come March. Them in Louisville is going to be a ton of fun to watch in the ACC too. The ACC's been good. All right, quickly just going through a couple of these other results that were just like, what happened? Good news for Arkansas fans, I think, for them. Their former coach also kind of struggling at Arkansas. They hold off Winthrop 84-83. They trailed most of real late in the game. And then, they had the whole debacle with a Nick Pringle and the big guy for Winthrop getting into it at the last couple seconds where Nick Pringle made a huge layup to send him ahead. It was a double technical foul, but Arkansas is escaping these bad teams. They don't seem like a very well-coached team, in my opinion. Malik Thomas was really good in this game, but yeah, speaking of out of control, this Arkansas team doesn't seem very cohesive. San Diego State lost at home to Troy. Troy, a sneaky little team here to watch out for in the Sun Belt. 108-107. This hurts San Diego State's at-large chances. This is kind of a tough loss. They get Players Era Festival coming up, can make it up. Southern took Washington to overtime. Washington won 99-93, a little bit shaky. Speaking of bad results in the Mountain West, Nevada loses at home to UC Davis. Nevada is no good this year. Boise State did beat Wichita State. Boise State's been better after losing their opening night matchup to Division II, Hawaii Pacific. Texas A&M held off Montana. UT Martin's hot run, cut a little bit short here by Florida State and Luke Laux, who looks like a very competent and bubblish Florida State team, 87-73. And then Yale lost at home to Rhode Island. Let's move on to Wednesday and talk about some of the big results here. All right, let's talk about the top 5 matchup that started off the night, where number 4 Arizona took on number 3 UConn in stores, a true away game for Arizona, and beat them 71-67. Now, it should be noted, I know UConn fans have quickly been noting it. Terrace Reed did not play in this game. Terrace Reed is UConn's most important piece, in my opinion. However, got a bunch of people talking about, I don't know, UConn fans were angry about this one for some reason. They're like, yeah, as soon as anyone said something good about Arizona, they were attacking them about, hey, we didn't have anyone. And I'm like, yeah, I understand that. But I think you got to be optimistic as a UConn fan, just based on history, because I kept commenting on other people's stuff of 2 years ago when Donovan Clingan got hurt. It forced Samson Johnson to play more minutes for Dan Hurley and produced into a dynamic duo of a front court. I think the same thing's going to be said for Ribey, who scored 15 points in this one, was actually UConn's leading scorer. Looked good. Can't shoot free throws, missed some big free throws down the stretch. But in fact, UConn was very rough from the free throw line in general. I'm actually going to pull it up what they were. I believe it was not good. Let me pull this up real quick. And in live time, they were 9 of 18 from the free throw line. Not very good. Ribey missed some big ones at the end of the game, but he looked competent, and I think he's going to be a pretty good piece to Terrace Reed. Terrace Reed is an All-American threat. He's really good. Let's talk about UConn first before talking about Arizona, because we're going to talk more about Arizona because they are awesome. They are absolutely awesome. But let's talk about UConn first. So Ribey, their leading scorer. Alex Karaban was kind of non-existent in this game, only 8 points in 35 minutes. Jalen Stewart was good. He had 10 points. Demery, 13 points. Solo Ball, 14 points. Solo Ball, I'm going to say it, I think he's overrated. 1 of 8 from 3 in this game, 5 of 14 from the field. I thought he was overrated last year. I know he was one of the best 3-point shooters in the country, but he was supposed to be the face of the team that was, a preseason top 5 team. And I know that team just wasn't as good as we thought they were going to be. However, I think he's their 3rd or 4th best player on this. If I had to pick it, I think he's their 4th best player on this team. He's not a bad basketball player whatsoever. I think he's just better off in a role player setting with Terrace Reed, with Silas Demery, with Alex Karaban, and Jalen Stewart and Jaden Ross also look good. Jaden Ross wasn't very good in this game, but yeah, I think Solo Ball's kind of got to, relax back into just kind of a role player role. I'm optimistic about UConn. They fought back in this game and actually took the lead at one point, but Arizona, I think the credit goes all to them. So let's talk about them. My goodness, Koa Pete is absolutely awesome. Absolutely awesome. I was a little worried about him coming into this game just because of the Dan Hurley scheme. Just seeing if, this was kind of my game of like, he had that massive game against Florida, which was obviously awesome. This was the game where I was really watching him and like, is he all that is set out to be? And yes, he is. 16 points, 12 rebounds. However, Jaden Bradley, right now, if this season ended right now, I think Jaden Bradley is no worse than a second team All-American. He has been awesome. He is that closer at the end of the game, 21 points in this one. And Mo Krivas is also awesome, 9 points, 14 rebounds. Tommy Lloyd is heavily leaning into Krivas, playing most of the minutes over Toby Owaka. I like it. I've been a Mo Krivas fan for a while. I thought it really killed Arizona last year when he got hurt, and they still won games last year. Tommy Lloyd is a phenomenal coach. So Arizona now has wins over at number 3 UConn, against at the time number 3 Florida in opening night, and a neutral site game that leaned heavily at UCLA, and three of those wins. If the season ended right now, this is your number 1 overall seed in March Madness. They might be the number 1 team in the AP poll. I'm curious what people would say. Let me know if you think they should be number 1 in the AP poll, because I don't know what to do with them. They're either going to be number 1 or number 2 for me. It's them and Purdue. I don't know. Purdue had that huge win at Alabama. I don't know. 1A, 1B. They both look really good. Kind of just weird about how things are aligning to what the past was. Remember, what was it, 2 years ago? I believe it was 2 years ago where Arizona played Purdue in a 1-2 game, I believe, where I think it was in Indianapolis, where Purdue ended up getting the win there. Yeah, that was the Purdue team that went all the way to the national championship, and UCLA was a 2 seed, lost to Clemson in the Sweet 16. But 1-2 seed there, or number 1 versus number 2, or it might have been number 1 versus number 3. I think it was number 1 versus number 2 though. Probably going to be your top 2 teams in the AP poll in this upcoming week. Or I was even thinking, I'm like, if UConn were to win this game, it was 2 years ago as well, where we were talking about UConn, Houston, and Purdue as completely separating from the pack. I didn't even put it together last week when these are your top 3 teams, and these have been your top 3 teams for a couple weeks, I believe. But yeah, it was like history's kind of repeating itself from 2 seasons ago. So last year was just like a gap year. This year, all these top teams are back to the top of the sport. Anyways, that's kind of just a random little note there. Let's dive into the second game, which was also a good game, where number 11 Alabama took down number 8 Illinois 90-86. This game was played in Chicago, so more of an Illinois fan base there, but not at the University of Illinois. Let's talk about Alabama for a second, because they now have 2 incredible wins against Illinois and against at Madison Square Garden against St. John. So big win in Chicago, big win in New York. How about that? Good stuff for Alabama. LeBaron Philon looking like an All-American still. 24 points, 5 assists, was 9 of 18 from the field in 25 minutes. Only played 25 minutes. That's going to be one of my thoughts on this game. I'll save that for a little bit. These foul calls are absolutely ridiculous. The refs have been more intolerable, in my opinion, this year than I've ever seen in basketball ever. It's miserable. Alabama did also get Bristow back from an ankle injury. The Tarleton State transfer, he looked really good. This could be a huge piece for their front court. What a hustler. He does not move like I believe he's 6'9" or 6'10". He does not move like a guy at that size. He is a hustler. He had 10 points and 8 rebounds off the bench. They might have found a little something here with their front court, because we know their backcourt's awesome with Philon, with Reitzel, with Aiden Holloway. They need some depth in the front court. Taylor Boboin stepped into a big role, and maybe Bristow is your guy, because he looked fantastic in this game. Alabama would also be a 1 seed right now, even with a loss, losing to Purdue, and they are just in the midst of an absolute gauntlet. So they played St. John's, top 5 team at the time. They played Purdue, number 2 team at the time. They played Illinois, number 8 team at the time. Now they'll go to the Players Era Festival, where they'll get Gonzaga, who is number 1 or number 2 in KenPom right now. And then you get UNLV, a little bit of a break game there. And then you get Clemson, not an easy team, a Brad Brownell coach team. Then you get a break with UTSA, thank God. Then you get Arizona, who's going to be probably number 1 or number 2 in this week's AP poll. So an absolute gauntlet for Nate Oates. They're looking like a top couple seed. This team reminds me of the team that was a 4 seed a couple years ago with Mark Sears that made the Final Four, beat North Carolina in the Sweet 16, then Clemson to make the Final Four. This team kind of reminds me of that team. However, I'm going to say it. LeBaron Philon's better than Mark Sears. I think he is. I know Mark Sears had a great year that year, but I think LeBaron Philon is a star. I think he's going to be, potentially a first team All-American this season. I love LeBaron Philon. Let's talk about Illinois for a second, because Illinois didn't play bad. They led at the half. Stojakovic had 26 points, 11 of 16 from the field. He looked really good in this matchup. Kylan Boswell, maybe the most underrated point guard in the entire country, 22 points, 7 assists, just is rock solid. He's so smooth down low. Really good player. Merkovich kind of killed Illinois. I hate to, throw it on one guy. He was rough in this game. He had a double-double. He had 10 points, 10 rebounds, but he was 4 of 13 from the field. Missed a lot of, missed quite a few bunnies in that one. Hummerkaus also didn't shoot it too well, but to me, this was just never a doubt that Alabama was going to win this game in the second half. Once they got off to a pretty good start in the second half, took control of the game, it just kind of looked like Alabama was a little bit better at the Illinois slash Alabama style, just run and gun, than Illinois was, which maybe shouldn't be too surprising. Now, it should be noted that Tomislav Visic is limited right now, and in my opinion, he's Illinois' best player. He only played 15 minutes in this game. However, he was kind of shut down in that 15 minutes, only 3 points, 3 rebounds. He's a tremendous passer, didn't have an assist. So credit to Alabama's defense. They did well, held Illinois to only 42% shooting. Illinois did miss a lot of free throws as well, 13 of 22 from the line compared to Alabama's 17 of 23. Alabama really didn't even make shots at the rate that they kind of do. Like, they did all right, 45% from the field, 36% from three, just about average there. And it just they won the control of the game aspect in this one. So credit to Nate Oates. Good teams all around. Really fun basketball season we've had so far to start this season, because we're having these elite level matchups, and it's just fun. It's fun to see these coaches scheduling these games. But my thought about this game, these foul calls are ridiculous. That there's a change in the approach this year where they want more points. They want college basketball to be maybe more watchable, I guess, to the casual fan, with more points, to kind of be more like the NBA. However, what they didn't realize is, by calling every single foul anytime you lay a finger on a guy, you're putting everyone in foul trouble, especially in this game, and it's taking the best players on the court off of the court. And it is absolutely ridiculous. The NCAA's got to do something about this. It is ridiculous. Let me go down Alabama's foul trouble here. Aiden Sherrill had 4 fouls. He was, he only got to play 9 minutes in this game because he was in foul trouble pretty much the entire way. Taylor Bowen, 4 fouls, only got to play 25 minutes in this game. LeBaron Philon, 4 fouls, only got to play 25 minutes in this game. Latrell Wrightso and Aiden Holloway stayed out of foul trouble. Amari Allen, who came off the bench, had 9 points, 11 rebounds. Good stuff for Alabama. 5 fouls. He fouled out in this game. What are we doing? What are we doing, refs? I don't know what's going on. 25 fouls. They were both in the bonus in the second half with like 8 minutes left. We mentioned that game in the Indiana-Marquette game that happened a while ago, where Indiana drilled Marquette, and we're going to get to Marquette. Don't get me wrong. So that'll kind of lead into it. But on the other side, Keaton Wagler, 5 fouls, fouled out of this game for Illinois. Kylan Boswell, 4 fouls, was in foul trouble the whole game. Ben Hummerkaus, 4 fouls, didn't get to play a significant role in this game because of the foul trouble. It is absolutely ridiculous. They have to do something about this. It's becoming unwatchable when you call a foul on everything. A player can't go for a rebound anymore and not get called for a foul. It's frustrating. I wonder if it's just me, but I really noticed it in this game, and they kept bringing up the graphic on FS1 of foul trouble. And yeah, it was. It's absolutely ridiculous. They gotta, be a little more lenient. You can still score points without having to score points at the foul line. All right, enough of that rant. Let's talk about the other 2 results. Dayton goes to Marquette and beats them 77-71 in overtime. Dayton controlled pretty much the entire game. Marquette fought back to get it to overtime, and then they had a possession to win in overtime, and it looked like nobody wanted to take the shot. Chase Ross had the ball, dished it off to someone in the corner. I don't know who it was, who had an open shot, passed it up with like 2 seconds left, because that's what you do with 2 seconds left. Dishes it off to Ben Gold, who has a shot with like 1 second left. Also passes it up, because that's what you do. Gives it to Chase Ross. They don't even get a shot off, and then they get destroyed in overtime. This Marquette team is not good. They're not going to make the NCAA tournament. I would be shocked if they do. They're down to 67th at KenPom right now. This is why I use the transfer portal. When you lose as many pieces as you lost, we kind of have been thinking that it was a smooth transition last year just because Cam Jones was back. The team started off good last year. The team wasn't very good at the end of the year. They were a 7 seed, got beat in the first round. Like, that team wasn't that great. Like, don't get me wrong, I loved Cam Jones, but that team wasn't awesome. And then you lose your by far your best player, and yeah, it's not good. You got to bring someone in from the transfer portal. It's not going to work if this style continues. And but good news for Dayton. Dayton picks up a big win here. This is kind of the theme of the A10. The A10 has some teams that this could be a 3-bid A10. The dream could be alive with the Mountain West not doing well. The SEC has been notably not great this year. They'll be fine. They'll be fine. They have so many teams that are good. They just haven't. People are expecting them to live up to the level of last year's, and that's never going to happen. That conference was awesome, but they haven't been as good. The Big East looks like it's going to be rather bleak for teams, especially with Marquette struggling. Creighton hasn't been awesome. I still think Creighton's going to make the tournament. However, Georgetown does look good, so I think it's a 4-bid Big East. UConn, St. John's, Georgetown, and probably Creighton. Maybe Villanova can sneak in there. Marquette doesn't look like a tournament team. Providence still has Kim English as a coach. They're probably not going to make the tournament with that. So the A10 has some bids opened up. Dayton, VCU, St. Louis, Loyola Chicago's been awful, who I thought was going to make a run here. George Washington. Yeah, they got a lot of teams that could, fight for at-large bids this year. And then moving over to the American and Big 12, USF and Oklahoma State. I still think USF's going to win the American this year. In fact, they actually caught Memphis already at KenPom, which they were like 50, 60 spots behind to start the season. They've already caught Memphis because Memphis also does not have a very good coach with Penny Hardaway there. But Oklahoma State and Steve Lutz also looks like a tournament team this year. Put up 103, 198 points in this game. Fun matchup. Steve Lutz looks like he's got things back on track there at Oklahoma State. All right, that's going to do it. That went a lot longer for a quickie podcast than we expected, as things usually go. Before heading out of here, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, whether that's on YouTube. We prefer YouTube, or Spotify or Apple, whether you're a listener or not. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Bracket Science, with 2 S's on that, where we're posting very regularly, posting some fun KenPom stats at this point, and just risers, fallers, a little bit of everything. So be sure to check that out. Thanks everyone for tuning in. We will be back. Our next podcast we'll record it late Sunday night, and it'll record Monday, or it'll post early Monday morning for just previewing all of Feast Week stuff, the Players Era Festival. We're going to talk about all of that. So that's going to be a big, probably long show. So be sure to come back for that. We'll see you then.